Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. Hope you're all doing fine. And today I've got a selection of LPs to show you that I've been listening to recently. And first up, it is the self-titled album by Tom Verlaine, and this came out on Elektra in 1979. And this was his first solo album after he'd left television. The album is a continuation of the television sound. In fact, television bassist Fred Smith plays on all of the tracks, and he's also got the Patti Smith Group drummer J.D. Doherty, who appears on all but 3 of the tracks. Apart from Yonky Time, which is a real throwaway song which should have ended up on the cutting room floor, I think this is a strong set of material. Breaking in My Heart has a repetitive Velvet Underground beat and has Ricky Wilson of the B-52s on second guitar, and it builds to an extended guitar solo and the repeated refrain of Breaking in My Heart. The opening 3 tracks, The Grip of Love, Souvenir from a Dream and Kingdom Come, are for me the equal of anything on television's second album Adventure. Next up we've got Blues for Allah by the Grateful Dead, and this is on the Grateful Dead record label and was released in 1975, and it was their 8th studio album. I know it's sacrilege to say this, but I much prefer the Grateful Dead studio albums to their live material. Having said that, Blues for Allah is a frustratingly inconsistent listen. The instrumental, Stronger Than Dirt, goes nowhere. Crazy Fingers has a slow reggae beat and drags on for over 7 minutes. And Sage and Spirit, another instrumental, is ruined for me by an MOR flute. I do like the jazzy feel, funky drum beat and strong vocal on The Music Never Stopped. And I also really love the title track with adventurous Middle Eastern influences and a strong harmony vocal. It segues into instrumental sections which recall for me a little the improvised psychedelic pieces of the earlier days. So it's not a total success, but I admire their artistic integrity. And moving on, we've got Empire, An Expensive Sound, and this is a reissue on the Munster label. It came out in 2022, but it was originally released back in 1981. Following the demise of Generation X, their guitarist Bob Durwood Andrews and drummer Mark Laff regrouped as a trio joined by bassist Simon Burnell. Their only album is a hidden gem of UK post-punk. Many of the songs are built up from minimalist one-string guitar riffs and turned into fabulous pop with melancholy melodies. The opening track, the instrumental Empire, sets an ominous post-punk tone with chunky bass, almost tribal drumming and ringing guitar. Hot Seat is guitar pop perfection, and it would surely have been a hit single if it had been promoted by a larger indie label or a major label. The guitar playing throughout the album constantly surprises. The solo on Turn It Round can rival television at their best, and the relentless guitar riff on Today is almost mod guitar pop. All these things also has a mod revival feel in the guitar sound. Listen to Safety and you'll swear the vocals sound like Ian Brown. In fact, John Squire was apparently a fan, so it's maybe not so surprising that you can hear the Stone Roses in this track. Johnny Marr was also a fan of Durwood's guitar playing, and it's not actually a giant leap from the more melancholy moments of Empire to the Smiths. And Empire were also a big influence on the early emo sound of Fugazi. If you can find this 2022 reissue on the Spanish label Munster, I can strongly recommend it. Interestingly, in 2023, Durwood got together with Rat Scabies as Durwood and the Rat to record the songs that Durwood had written 40 years before for the proposed second album by Empire. Next up, it's Bad Girl by Cherry Vanilla, and this is on the RCA Victor label, and it was released in 1978. She started out as David Bowie's publicist in the early 70s before turning her hand to music. I first came across her when she toured the UK in 1977 with the first lineup of the Police as her backing band, and Bad Girl was her first album. The opener, I Know How to Hook, sounds more like musical theatre than rock and roll. Some of the other tracks do come quite close to Bowie-esque 70s glam, and she also dips her toes into 50s rock and roll pastiche. She does have presence but lacks the street smarts and effortless cool of Debbie Harry. And the upfront cheesy piano does great at times, detracting from her attempts to sound current and new wave. The punk is a highlight, and it's a Mott the Hoople style rocker, and No More Canaries brings to mind Patti Smith, but without her lyrical skills. Next up, a real favourite of mine, Roy Loney and the Phantom Movers, Out After Dark. And this is on the Solid Smoke label, and it was released in 1979. After dropping out of the Flaming Groovies in the early 70s, Loney returned at the end of the decade with a strong solo debut. His Phantom Movers actually included ex-Flaming Groovies members guitarist James Ferrell and drummer Danny Meem. Loney is in great voice, certainly the equal of his vocals on the Groovies LPs Flamingo and Teenage Head. The band sounds hot too, and you get some rocking guitar solos from both James Ferrell and Larry Lee. Ferrell's slide guitar on Used Hoodoo is stunning. My favourite track on here is Neat Petite, with some fun lyrics and a great guitar riff. And the only downer for me is a pretty pointless cover of Return to Sender. The other cover is far better. It's an obscure rockabilly novelty called Rockin' in the Graveyard, and that really hits the spot, bringing out Loney's humorous side, which was never far below the surface. He was a born entertainer and is very much missed. Next up we've got the Triffids and Born Sandy Devotional, and this is a reissue put out by Domino in 2015. And the album was originally released in I think 1986, and it was their second studio album by this Australian indie rock band. The opening two tracks, The Seabirds, which has sweeping strings, and Estuary Bed, which has some beautiful pedal steel guitar, and both topped with epic baritone vocals from David McComb, set the benchmark high for the album. Many of the lyrics on the album have a novelist's skill at evoking moments in time, focusing on unrequited love and doomed love affairs, referencing sin and pestilence. The production is by Gil Norton, who just came from producing the album Echo and the Bunnymen's Ocean Rain. And the production does actually topple over occasionally into 80s production overkill. Possibly the most well-known song, Wide Open Road, relies on a keyboard motif rooted in folk music, and lyrics possibly influenced by the yearning romanticism of William Butler Yeats. Next up we've got Kenny Burrell and Blues the Common Ground, and this is on the Verve label and it came out in 1968. The jazz guitarist is joined here by arranger-conductor Don Sebesky and also some acclaimed musicians such as Herbie Hancock, Ron Carter and Grady Tate. And the album swings in a soulful 1960s fashion. The album opens with Stephen Stills' song from Buffalo Springfield, Every Days, which stamps its authority with a brass and woodwind backing. Soulful Brothers has blues guitar from Burrell, backed by just Hancock, Carter and Tate, and the piano solo from Herbie Hancock on this number is perfection in its restraint. The funkiest track on the album, CC Rider, Will Have You Dancing. The drumming from Grady Tate on this one is simply exquisite. And Sausalito Nights is a classy, relaxed rendition by Burrell, Hancock, Carter and Tate, and ends the album on a real high. And moving on, we've got Quicksilver Messenger Service and the album Shady Grove. And this is an Edsel reissue which came out in 1987, but the album was originally released in 1970, and it was their third album by the San Francisco rock band. On this album they were joined by the English piano player Nicky Hopkins, and he's responsible actually for most of the highlights on the album. His thoughtful playing on Flute Song, for example, takes lead, and accompanied by the viola of David Freiberg. On 3 or 4 Feet from Home, a jaunty country rocker, Hopkins' barroom-style piano really cuts through. And Too Far veers into sort of band-style Americana, with Hopkins adding his Rolling Stones-style organ. By the final track, a 9-minute instrumental penned by Hopkins called Edward the Mad Shirt Grinder, is clearly the leader and is on fire. Muddy production and some suspect vocals detract from what could have been a very solid album. Moving on, we come to one of my favourite bands actually, certainly of the 80s, and it's The Prisoners, and the album In From the Cold on the Countdown label, and this was released in 1986. And they're a garage rock band from the Medway area in Kent, and included in the lineup is James Taylor, who went on to form the James Taylor Quartet, and I'd rate him as the best UK organist since Ian McLagan of the Small Faces. And this was their 4th album, and their last until their triumphant return in 2024 with the album Morning Star. Looking particularly sharp in cool suits and capable of writing some of the catchiest tunes of the 80s, they should have had real success. The clear production by Troy Tate, who played for Teardrop Explodes, doesn't smooth out too much their live energy. And the best track for me is in a strong set is the mid-tempo Mourn My Health, and that one has a beautifully controlled vocal from Graham Day. And moving along, we come to the Rezillos and Can't Stand the Rezillos, and this was released on the Sire label in 1978. And it's their debut album of a comic book and 60s inspired guitar pop. Internal tensions quickly led to the band splitting up, with the main songwriter, guitarist Joe Callis, going on to have some real success with the band Human League in the 1980s. All the singles on here, Flying Saucer Attack, Top of the Pops, Can't Stand My Baby, and My Baby Does Good Sculptures, are all quirky and energetic. But the album really loses momentum on side 2 with some particularly pointless covers of Glad All Over and I Like It. Good Sculptures though has aged well, and I think that's it's a glam stomper worthy of Chin & Chapman. Next up we've got The Pretty Things and Freeway Madness. And this was their 6th studio album, and it's a bit sad really because you've only got Phil May left from the classic 60s lineup, and what you get is a set of laid-back soft rock with tasteful guitar solos and restrained harmony vocals. It's all perfectly serviceable and on trend for 1972, but not what I want to hear from the Pretty Things. Also, the messy production makes them sound particularly sluggish. Production is actually credited to Ava Jones, which is a pseudonym for Wally Waller, who'd just left the band. John Povey's vocals have the raspy quality of Dennis Wilson in his later years, and you get some pedal steel guitar on Country Road, but it's not in the same league as, say, the Fly Burrito Brothers or Poco. They should have really played to their strengths and injected some English rock passion. Next up we've got Santana and Amigos. This is on the CBS label, and it was put out in 1976. And this was their 7th studio album. The opening track, Dance Sister Dance, is classic Santana. You've got mellifluous guitar playing, conga drumming and Spanish vocals. Tom Costa's Hammond organ impresses, especially on the track Take Me With You. Let Me is a diversion into a soulful, funky sound with female backing vocals. Guitar note starts off with beautiful Spanish acoustic guitar and then moves on to a salsa beat and strong Spanish vocals, and the vocals come from the percussionist in the band, Armando Peraza. Europa is a slow, emotive guitar piece that builds up momentum towards its conclusion, and Let It Shine is another soulful number with hints of Isaac Hayes and Stevie Wonder. Okay, that's it for today. I'm hoping to turn this into a regular feature and also show more often what I've been listening to on CD. Anyway, I always enjoy reading your comments, so please consider putting a comment below, maybe mention what you've been listening to as well, and I will see you again soon, so take care.